Hello friends. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a mental health chat as well as some goals I have for myself for 2022. Apologies in advance if there's any weird cuts in this video. I have tried a few different times to film some mental health update type of checkups and I end up wimping out being like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to share this. So there may be some moments that get chopped that make the transitions from something I'm saying into something else I'm saying seem a little bit chaotic, and that would be the reason why. Hopefully, though, everything I state will be coherent enough. So basically, 2022, as of right now at the start, I'm feeling fantastic. So a lot of you know, and if you don't, a little heads up, there's a little bit of heavier topics going to be discussed here. But in 2020, it was difficult for everyone, of course. I was my father's caretaker, and he passed away in 2020. It was very difficult, but it was one of those things where I just did everything I could to take care of him. It came very suddenly. My father was elderly, but very healthy for an older person. And I thought I was going to have at least 10 more years with him, if not more. Everybody that ever met my dad was shocked at his age. They were always saying he was the healthiest person they'd ever met of his age. And he took care of himself. He was very active. He was very sharp. And in 2020, at the beginning, when everything started to happen everywhere, he wasn't feeling well, and of course I was a little bit panicked, thinking, oh no, I hope he doesn't have this, because he's, of course, more high risk because of his age. So I tried to help him in every way I could, and he ended up having to go to the hospital. I pretty much immediately dropped everything and decided I would move in with him. My husband and I moved in with him because we knew that he was going to need somebody to help him around the house, just with basic things, because he was going to have surgery. And also, with everything going on, I didn't really want him to go out in public very much for his own grocery shopping and things like that. So we just figured, rather than me driving back and forth all the time, that we would just move in. And that's what we did, and it was so good that we did, because he did end up needing a lot of help. And then, of course, obviously, his health declined very rapidly after that. It was very challenging. So his death was also quite unexpected. He had been to the hospital 5 times in 4 months. 4 of those 5 times he went to the same hospital. There was only one other time that he went to a different hospital, but we don't need to get into details for that. But he was, physically I could tell he wasn't doing well. Anybody could tell looking at him. My dad was 6'1", and I'm only about 5'4", a little under, and by the time he passed away, he weighed less than me, and that's a red flag immediately, that he was so rapidly losing weight. They could never seem to identify what was going on. The 5th time he was in the hospital, and the last time, he was there for a little bit, and I could never visit him. The 4 of the 5 times he was at this one specific hospital, I wasn't allowed to go see him, which was another very difficult thing. And the last time he was there, they were very hopeful, and they were telling me we had all of these options moving forward, that numbers were looking really good. And then I picked him up, and I couldn't help but think, what are they talking about? He clearly isn't doing well. And then 3 days later, he died. So when he passed away, fortunately, he was at home. Fortunately, he was with family, and it was peaceful for him. And I did a video about a month after he passed away, updating all of you. And while his passing was as peaceful in that moment as it could have been, it was 4.5 months of him being in such pain and discomfort. At least that moment was peaceful, but it was not peaceful for me. Hopefully nobody ever has to see somebody unexpectedly pass away in front of them. But it is, and I don't use this word lightly, but it is traumatizing. I, in the moment, was very much just jumping into action. We weren't sure what was happening. We called, 911, and we're saying, we don't know if he's having a stroke. We don't know what's happening. So they walked us through what to do. And I don't want to go into details about that either, because even I think hearing about it is difficult for other people. And you probably don't even need to hear about it to fill in the details. But anyway, I did what I'd been doing the whole time, which was just, okay, here's what they're telling me to do. Here's what I need to do. I need to help him. I need to do this. I need to do that. And then when they
took him to the hospital. Of course, you wait around for a while, get the phone call that they didn't make it, which I figured. But then it's all just like, all right, now what? I had a very great relationship, probably the best relationship that a person can have with a parent. I had that with my dad, and I'm so grateful I had that. I didn't have a lot of time with him in my childhood because my parents are split up. And I always kind of knew, because he was older, that the clock was ticking and to cherish my time with him. And I don't have any regrets as far as, oh, if only I had tried to see him more often or anything. I talked to my dad all the time. I saw him all the time. We were very, very close. And so it was very strange to no longer have him in my life. And he passed away in August of 2020. After that, of course, is the holiday season. You have September, and then once October gets around, everybody's getting ready for Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving comes, and everybody's getting ready for Christmas, and then Christmas comes. But then 2020 was still 2020, so you couldn't really go see people, and I didn't really want to see people anyway. But also, I had moved into his home to be his caretaker, which is where I currently live now, and this was the house that he had moved into not too long after my parents had split up, so I have a lot of memories in this home. And it was just strange to wake up every day and you suddenly feel like you have so much time, because when you're someone's caretaker, you're on the clock. And then suddenly I had all this time, and I thought, well, I guess I got to go right back to my channel, because I had stopped. If you didn't know, I used to teach private violin lessons. I stopped doing that once the illness hit. So my channel was my only source of income at that point, and I wasn't making a lot because obviously I was taking care of my father, and that was number one priority. So I was like, well, I got to jump right back into it and try to just get back to work. And then I think that was not the healthiest thing to do. It was what I'm not very expressive as far as, maybe I seem expressive in my videos. I'm expressive about excitement and when I really like something. But as far as the deeper emotions go, I prefer to process it alone. And the one person, aside from my husband, who I often would have long chats with, was my dad, and I don't have my dad anymore. And so it was interesting the way that the little tedious things in life that annoy you and then you kind of vent about, my dad was always the person that I'd be like, ugh, about, various things happening in life. Or when I was really excited about something that had happened, I would want to call him and tell him, like, guess what, Dad? And he was always the most supportive person. And so I didn't have my cheerleader, and I didn't have that ear for venting about silly things or sharing important things. I didn't have that anymore. And so I just felt stuck. But I kept thinking, it'll go away. I just got to push through it. And then the more time passed, the more it felt wrong to still be sad, because I'm like, oh, well, now it's been 6 months. Now it's been a year. And I kept pushing. And then right around September of 2021, I feel like is when I finally came up for air, if you will. It didn't help that my sleep schedule, I used to kind of joke about it here and there in videos, but my sleep schedule was very, very, very messed up for a while, because when I would lay down to sleep, I don't know if a lot of you are like this, but I'm the kind of person that when I go to sleep, my brain is deciding that's the best time to start wandering, and then I can't fall asleep because I think about things. And then, of course, that's when my brain would think about all the things that I was trying to push away throughout the day. And when I would finally fall asleep, then I would have what I guess I'll just describe as nightmares. Like, for example, there was a while to wait when, after my father passed away, there's a period of time when you're trying to get everything settled for what to do with the remains. And we were not hearing back. And that made me so anxious, because I'm just like, okay, when are we going to hear back? Because I'm just imagining his body just like somewhere, and I can't go anywhere, and I can't. And so I would have dreams that my dad called me and said, hey, they were wrong. I am fine. And then I'd go pick him up, and then at some point in the dream, he would end up dying, and those kinds of things. So then I didn't also want to go to sleep. So then I was trying to find every possible thing I could at nighttime to occupy my brain in hopes that I would eventually get so exhausted that I would just fall asleep. But also, hopefully, I wouldn't dream. I don't know. It was very frustrating. So my sleep schedule was way messed up, and it made it so that I was becoming nocturnal. So I was having the exact opposite schedule as most people, but also my husband. And then I just felt very lonely because I was always awake at the times everyone was asleep. And so there's all these things going on. And my husband and I took a trip to Glacier National Park. This is where I was going with this, around August, September. And my dad, his favorite animal is a grizzly bear. And I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. And when we were in Glacier National Park, I kept saying, like, oh my gosh, it'd be so amazing if we saw a bear. I really want to see a bear. I really want to see a bear. And we didn't just see a bear, we saw a mama bear and her 2 cubs, and it was the most magical thing. I was so excited. Glacier is fantastic all around, by the way, but that was such an incredible moment. I was so excited, and the first thought I had was, 1, I wish Dad were here, but 2, I wish I could call Dad and tell him about this because he would be so excited. He would think that was so cool, and then when we got home, I'd be able to show him the video clips we got of this wild bear and her cubs. And not only that, but then we saw another bear later in the trip. Anyway, so there was this moment of, this is one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. And it's kind of bittersweet. It was both very meaningful and also, I guess, a wake-up call for me that, okay, it's been a little over a year, and you aren't... It was like the most I had felt in the entire year after he'd passed away, if that makes sense. Because there's so many things that I'm passionate about and I love. I love to draw. I love to read. Surprise. I love video games. I love board games. I love nature documentaries. There's so many things that I really enjoy. Playing my violin. There's so many things I really enjoy, and none of it really had the same meaning anymore. None of it it's not that it lost it's not that I didn't love those things anymore. It was just the world keeps moving, but you feel stuck, I guess, and empty in a sense. And I knew that was part of the grieving process. I knew I had to be sad, and I knew things, of course. I mean, my entire world, this was a person who had literally been in my life that I loved dearly and who loved me dearly for my entire life was now gone. So yeah, the world is a little emptier. At least mine, you know what I mean? So that moment, some of you may recall if you watch my channel pretty consistently, shortly after that, I had a community tab post because I had tried to make a video talking about feelings and things, and I was like, I don't want to post this. But I had a community tab post that was basically like, I'm trying to prioritize my mental health, so I'm going to take a week off. 1 week. And I did, and I felt so much better. I just needed some time, like I said, to come up for air. And I have felt so much better since. There's also, again, if you've lost a loved one, you've perhaps dealt with some of this, but there's just so much on top of the grieving process that you don't expect that, there isn't a pamphlet that gets handed to you that's like, here's everything you need to do now. And it's different depending on your situation and who it is in your life that you've lost and your relationship with them. But I was the executor of the will and also the one to make all of the arrangements for everything. And the probate process involves local government and, sometimes not the most efficient, and would drag on and on and on, and you're trying to move on with your life and you have to deal with all these other things. And so that didn't help either. Where I'm going with all this is to say I am feeling so much better, and my passions are back, especially my passion for writing. I'm so excited to get back to it. I thought I was ready to get back to it, and I honestly wasn't. And I am definitely more so ready for that, and just excited to jump into things. I posted a lot more content around the holidays, leading up to the holidays, because I felt like I was back. And I don't know, I'm excited for the new year. It just so happens that a lot of my feelings happen to be now occurring right around 2022. I know that it's not permanently over. I know I also do get depressed, so I know I will get depressed again. It's just a fact of life for me. But right now I'm feeling very good and very happy and just excited about life again, excited about the things that I enjoy. As for how all of this relates to goals, so at the beginning of 2021, I actually liked a lot of the goals I'd set up for myself. I was just not emotionally, mentally, and physically, I feel like, capable of committing to them. And I hate dropping the ball. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here and act like I'm just so amazing, but I lived the hustle life for a lot of my life. I took all the advanced classes. I did college courses when I was in high school. I was first chair of my youth orchestra, first chair of my high school orchestra. I got a scholarship, worked my way through school so I wouldn't have any student debt, which meant working all the time. And I always say, if my husband could deal with me in college when I was stressed beyond belief, that we were going to make it through anything, which I think is true because he's a saint. But anyway, so I have worked really hard for a lot of my life. I also didn't have an easy childhood, so I had to kind of work through, once again, I don't like using this word, but some traumatizing things in my childhood. And I've always fancied myself like a really hard worker. And my mom is the daughter of immigrants, and she was very much devoted and dedicated to her family, and she took on a lot of burdens. My father grew up, I've mentioned before, in absolute poverty, experienced homelessness as a child, and he worked unbelievably hard and had such difficult conditions in his life. And he came out of it just a joyful, lovely person, and I love both my parents so much. And they're my example that I'm like, always like, oh, well, I haven't had quite the circumstances they had, but I feel like I'm the kind of kid that makes them proud. And at some point, I'm like, I'm tired. So tired emotionally and mentally, and I just feel like I had needed that break. And I hate that the break interfered with my ability to be more active on Patreon. I feel like it affected my ability to read as much as I would have liked to. It impacted my ability to communicate with people efficiently and in a timely manner. And I just felt like I was dropping the ball left and right. And at one point I told my husband, I was like, I just feel like I always feel like I need to prioritize work and all those other things before me because it feels selfish. And he's like, that's really messed up. You need to take care of yourself in order to do all of these other things. And he's very supportive, if you couldn't tell. I love my husband very much. So I'm trying to find that balance. I'm trying to focus on my physical health, being more active, eating better, which I've been doing, and I've been really enjoying it. And I just feel like I need to be a better version of myself so that I don't get this emotional burnout, if you will. And I actually am going to try to schedule in breaks for myself. Like, okay, here's when I'm going to take, 4 days off or something like that. I need to schedule in vacation time. Getting to more specific goals though, I do want to be more active on my Patreon. I do want to post videos ahead of time for patrons. For the patrons I do have, thank you so much for sticking with me. I really appreciate it so much. And that little bit of a extra income definitely has helped throughout losing my father and then trying to get back on my feet in 2021. So I really appreciate all of you, even though I know that I just don't feel like I gave anything really extra to patrons. And I am really regretful about that. But that is one goal of mine, is I want to be a little bit more active on my Patreon. At the very least, I want to be able to put content up early, or maybe do the occasional reading sprint again, or post something extra for patrons here and there. I also want to be really on top of reading new releases. I really enjoy reading new books that are coming out because it's so hard for authors, I think, to, if they're not already established, to get their name out there and get their work out there. And I like that even if I don't love their books, by talking about it, that can potentially help more people discover a book that they might have never heard of, because, we've all heard of Game of Thrones, right? But all these newer books that are coming out, we see them on anticipated releases videos, and then sometimes we hear about them, and sometimes we don't, and then that's just it. And I don't know, I like being able to talk about the books that maybe aren't as well known just yet, while still reading some of the popular stuff from before, or finding hidden gems here and there. But in general, I do want to be on top of reading new fantasy releases. So a goal I'd had for last year was to try and do new releases wrap-ups. I don't know that I'll always be able to do one for every month, but at the very least, I would like to do them every season. If I can do it every month, I will try. I also want to read a little bit more nonfiction this year. I felt I was doing pretty well for a while, and then I got fantasy burnout, which helped reading nonfiction, but then once the fantasy cravings came back, I feel like I dropped the ball on reading nonfiction. I'd also like to post 3 to 5 times a week, preferably 4 as the set kind of consistent number, and then occasionally an extra one or occasionally one fewer, depending on the situation. I'm actually not going to commit to dedicated days of uploads because sometimes with sponsors, things just really don't go where you want them exactly, and so I'm not going to hold myself too much to I have to post on these days. I'll post hopefully at least 4 videos a week, and they'll probably be sometime on weekdays, but maybe not always. I also am hoping to do more live shows this year where I bring some friends on and we chat about books. You know, the whole point of BookTube is chatting about books, and I have a lot of people that I absolutely adore here that are also booktubers, and I want to be able to chat with them, and I am scared of live shows, but I've done a couple now, and my fear is slowly trickling away, so I'm going to try to embrace doing live shows more often. I'm actually really excited for a lot of the ones that, fingers crossed, end up working out. And then on the topic of more collaborative things, I am definitely going to be very on top of World Hoppers. The goal is to have generally at least one World Hopper video a week. If you don't know what World Hoppers is, it's a separate channel that is entirely collaborative, where it's longer format discussions, sometimes about books, sometimes about tropes, sometimes it's about adaptations, but either way, it's generally fantasy related with the occasional other genre mixed in. It gives you an opportunity to see a lot of other booktubers and maybe find some other people that you really, really enjoy, as well as just getting to enjoy more conversation-based videos. Also, a kind of personal goal, but one that I'm gonna really try to stick to, is establishing a routine. My sleep schedule is much closer to being normal again, which is such a relief, and I want to really establish a more typical sleep schedule, a more set sleep schedule, because that just sets up my days so much better. I also want to have a fairly consistent exercise routine, and also just how, like I said earlier in the video, I want to try and cook food more often, and I don't think we've been eating out all that much, but still there's definitely improvements that can be made when it comes to what I consume. Drinking lots of water. I'm pretty good about drinking water, but I want to be able to drink at least a gallon a day, or try to hit a gallon a day. And in general, I just want to set up a work routine that incorporates editing, recording, doing some things for collaborative efforts, as well as making room, of course, for reading and writing, and then getting to emails. That is my weakness. Oh my goodness. I don't know why I'm the worst at getting back to people with emails. It does lead me to one other thing that I kind of just want to let all of you know. I used to be a little bit more open to, hey, if you have a question, just email me. And I get so many emails so much that it has become very, very overwhelming for me, and I don't like shutting off this means of communication, but I do have to, I think, set that boundary for myself that unless it's some kind of collaborative or business inquiry, I think I'm going to have to ask that people not use my email unless it's for those purposes. I just can't get back to everybody, and then I feel so bad that I can't get to everybody, and then I end up missing sometimes opportunities that have been presented to me a month before, because anyway, so you will of course still see me here. I post quite a bit on Instagram stories. Every now and then I'll post on Twitter, I post on community tab, but I am going to have to ask that emails be basically just for collaborations and business inquiries. I think I've basically covered everything I was hoping to. Because this is more of a chatty video, I'm sure I skipped over something that I had wanted to mention. But either way, thanks if you've listened to me go on and on and on for a while. I appreciate everybody who's always been kind and supportive. I can't thank you enough for sticking around. It hasn't been easy, and I've tried to always put my best foot forward, and I'm trying to do a better job of taking care of myself so that I can continue to put my best foot forward. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're having a great start to your 2022, and if you're not, that's okay. take time to take care of yourself, and I'll see you all later. Bye. Oh my goodness.